There's a hospice nurse in Australia named Bronnie Ware who spent years sitting next to people in the final weeks of their lives, and she noticed something she never forgot. The people she cared for didn't talk about money, not once. What they talked about was living, the trips they took and loved, the people they wished they'd called more, the version of themselves they kept promising to become one of these days. And here's the part that stuck with me. Almost everything they wished they'd done was within reach the whole time. They weren't short on money, they were short on the one thing money can't buy: a little more time, spent on the right stuff. Their regrets weren't dramatic. Nobody was mourning some grand adventure they couldn't afford. They were mourning the small, ordinary things they kept assuming they'd get around to later. So today, I want to hand you the shortcut. Across years of interviews, retirement research, and memoirs, the same wisdom keeps surfacing from people who've already crossed the finish line. Folks in their 70s, 80s, and 90s answering the only question that really matters. If you could go back and sit your younger self down for a chat, what would you actually say? The answers are simpler than you'd think, and funnier, and a couple of them are going to land pretty close to home. Let's get into it. Lesson 1. Time is the only thing you can't buy back. You can lose money and make it back, lose a job, land a better one, lose a fantasy football league, and... okay, that one haunts you forever, but you get the point. Time doesn't play by those rules. When you're young, time feels endless and money feels scarce, so you trade your hours cheaply to get more money. The extra weekend, the overtime, the email at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday because you're a team player. Then retirement shows up and the whole equation flips. Now you've got the money, but time is the thing running low. And there's no store on earth where you can walk in and say, "I'd like to return this watch and get back the 6 years I spent staring at a screen." Many retirees describe the same regret, and it isn't about a bad decision or a wrong turn. It's 4 quiet words: "I thought I'd have more." So treat your hours like the one currency you can never earn back, because that's exactly what they are. Being busy isn't the same as building a life. It just feels that way while you're doing it. Lesson 2. Your health is a retirement account. I saved up 40 years to travel the world, and now my hips have opinions on stairs. That's how one 78-year-old retiree put it, sharp as a tack, wicked sense of humor, and just a little annoyed that her body had decided to retire early without checking with her first. Which is the whole lesson. Your health is a retirement account, and most of us are shockingly bad about making the deposits. We obsess over the portfolio, we rebalance, we panic over a 0.5% expense ratio like it's a small house fire. Then we park ourselves on the couch and treat our body like a rental car we're planning to return before the lease is up. Here's the uncomfortable math. All that money means very little if you can't get out of the chair to spend it. And the healthiest retirees didn't do anything magic. They just made small, boring deposits for decades. A walk after dinner, water instead of soda most days, actually sleeping instead of scrolling until 1 a.m. and then wondering why they're exhausted. None of it's exciting. All of it compounds. Health is basically compound interest with a heartbeat, and you cannot out-earn a body you never took care of. Start the deposits now, even if it's just a 20-minute walk. Future you is already filling out the thank you card. Lesson 3. Relationships matter more than achievements. Quick, name your grandparents' biggest career accomplishment. You probably can't, but I'd bet you can tell me exactly how it felt to sit at their kitchen table, for those of us who are or were lucky to. The smell of the food, the sound of their laugh, that one story they told 900 times that you'd give anything to hear one more time. That contrast shows up again and again. The trophies fade, the promotions get forgotten, the corner office goes to somebody else. But the people you loved and the people who loved you back, that's the part that actually lasts. The wins folks were sure would matter forever look surprisingly small in the rearview mirror, while the relationships they quietly took for granted turn out to be the whole thing. An 82-year-old put it like this: "Nobody's going to read your resume at your funeral, but the room will be full of the people you made time for. Because a person is not a spreadsheet you can ignore for 30 years and reconcile the week before retirement. Friendships are more like houseplants. Skip watering them for a decade and try not to act surprised when they're dry. So call the person you keep meaning to call, not text, call. Better yet, show up. Chase a few more dinners and a few fewer titles. The resume won't miss you for an afternoon, but the people might. I have never once heard someone near the end of their life say, 'I wish I'd spend less time with the people I loved.' Not once." Lesson 4. Stop the comparison. Here's a talent almost all of us have and none of us asked for. We can find a way to feel behind no matter how well things are actually going.
Your neighbor gets a new truck, and suddenly your perfectly good truck looks a little sad. A college buddy posts a beach photo, and now your Tuesday feels like a personal failure. Someone your age retires early, and you spend the afternoon doing math you didn't need to do. The problem is that comparison is a game with no finish line. There's always a bigger house, a nicer boat, a fancier retirement, and the second you catch the person you were chasing, you look up and find someone new to feel behind. And these days, the game never even closes. There's a whole glowing rectangle in your pocket serving up other people's best moments 24 hours a day, carefully cropped to hide the arguments, the debt, and the anxiety that didn't make the photo. One common story goes like this. A woman spends her 40s and 50s trying to keep pace with a circle of friends who all seem to have it far more together than she does. Bigger everything. Then, decades later, she learns most of them had been quietly drowning in debt and stress she'd never in a million years have traded for. Her verdict? I was jealous of a magic trick. The whole time I was comparing my real life to their commercial. And here's the twist. The neighbors aren't even watching you. They're far too busy measuring themselves against their neighbors. It's insecurity all the way down. So run your own race. Otherwise, you'll spend the entire thing staring at the lane beside you and never actually cross your own line. Lesson 5. Keep learning forever. Want to know the one trait every sharp, wide-awake retiree seemed to share? It wasn't money. It wasn't good genes. It was that not a single one of them had stopped learning. And not in a fancy way, although a couple did go back for another degree, mostly out of spite, which I deeply respect. Mostly, they just stayed curious. New hobbies, strange books, questions asked with the shameless energy of a 5-year-old who just discovered the word why. Turns out the brain is a muscle, and I'm too old to learn that is just a bicep that quit showing up to the gym. Take the man who taught himself piano at 74, badly at first by his own account. His first month sounded like a cat walking across the keys during a thunderstorm. 2 years later, he was the one playing at every family gathering, and he'd say it did more for his happiness than any number in his account ever did. Or the 80-year-old who finally sat down and learned her smartphone for real, and now video calls her grandkids across the country every single week. As she described it, everyone kept telling me I was too old for the technology. Turns out I just needed somebody patient enough to show me twice. The day you decide you're finished learning is the day you start quietly rusting in place. And it's not really about the piano or the phone. It's about staying the kind of person who still gets excited about something. The retirees who kept that flame going didn't just stay smarter, they stayed interested in the world, which turns out to be most of the secret to staying interesting in it. So stay a beginner at something. Take the class, read the weird book, ask the dumb question. Curiosity is the closest thing we've got to a fountain of youth. And unlike everything else in this video, it's completely free.
Lesson 6. Spend generously on what you love. This one catches people off guard because it sounds like the opposite of everything a money guy is supposed to say. The happiest retirees I've met weren't cheap. They were intentional, and there's a canyon of difference between the two. Cheap leaves you with a garage full of stuff you didn't want and a thin photo album where the memories should be. The system the no-regret crowd landed on is almost embarrassingly simple. Name the 2 or 3 things you genuinely love and pour money into those without a shred of guilt. Everything else, the subscriptions you forgot you're paying for, the upgrades that don't move the needle, the stuff you buy on pure autopilot, trim to the bone. Then take it all and aim it like a fire hose at what actually lights you up. A woman in her 70s described it perfectly. She never regretted a single dollar she spent traveling with her grandkids. Yet to this day, she can't explain the formal dining room that used exactly twice, both times a little awkwardly. That's the entire lesson in one sentence. Money spent on what you love barely feels like spending at all. Money spent to look a certain way just quietly evaporates. So stop smearing your dollars thin across a pile of things you feel lukewarm about. Concentrate them on the handful that make your heart do the little happy thing. That's not reckless. That's the whole reason you earned the money in the first place. Nobody lies on their deathbed wishing they'd owned a slightly grayer couch, but plenty of them wish they'd said yes to the trip. Lesson 7. Let it go. There's an old line that holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to feel it. It lands a lot harder coming from someone in their 80s who stopped speaking to a sibling over something small decades ago and now would give just about anything for one more ordinary conversation. Because most of us are carrying something, a resentment, a friendship that went quiet over a slight we honestly can't reconstruct anymore. We just remember that we were right, and somewhere along the line, being right started to matter more than being at peace.
The grudge almost always costs more than whatever started it. An older gentleman once said the biggest regret of his life wasn't a bad deal or a lost investment, it was 20 years of silence with his own brother over an argument neither of them could even fully remember. He said, "I won the argument and lost my brother. Worst trade I ever made." Now, I'm not saying every relationship deserves rescuing. Some doors are healthier left closed. That's a boundary, not a grudge, and those are real difference. But the low-grade resentments we haul around out of pure stubbornness are just weights we strapped on ourselves and then forgot we were even carrying. Forgiveness was never really about the other person. It's about setting down a heavy bag you've been dragging uphill for no reason at all. You don't have to send a card. You don't have to reconcile. You just have to stop carrying it. So set it down. Lesson 8. Don't wait for the perfect time. Here's a trap so comfortable you don't even feel yourself sitting in it. You're waiting for the perfect time. The perfect trip, to start the business, have the kid, change careers, chase the thing you actually want. You're waiting for the finances to line up, the calendar to clear, the stars to slide into a tidy little row that finally says, okay, now it's safe. That moment does not come. There's always a reason to wait. A bill, a busy stretch, let's just get through this one thing first. Then you blink, and it's 30 years later, and the one thing quietly turned into 100 things. The waiting feels responsible, even wise. That's the sneaky part. It doesn't feel like giving up on the dream, it feels like being sensible about it, right up until the window closes on its own. One couple spent their entire marriage saying they'd travel once things settled down. Well, life doesn't settle down. It just swaps out whatever's unsettled. When they finally went, the trips were everything they'd hoped for, and the husband said the only thing he'd change is that they didn't start 20 years sooner.
The people who actually do the thing aren't braver or richer or luckier than you. They just stopped waiting for a permission slip that was never in the mail. They started before they felt ready, because ready is a feeling that shows up after you begin, not before. So, whatever you've been parking until the timing gets better, the timing isn't going to get better. It's only going to get later. Start a little messy, a little early, a little scared. That's how everything worth doing has ever gotten done. Notice what almost none of these lessons were actually about: money, time, health. Not one of them is waiting on a bigger portfolio or the perfect market. Every single one is available to you today for free inside the exact life you already have. The older folks aren't warning you about running out of money. They're reminding you not to run out of life while you're busy chasing everything you assumed life was supposed to be about. Notice, too, that not one of these lessons requires you to be finished with work, or wealthy, or old enough to have earned the wisdom the hard way. That's the quiet gift of listening to people at the far end of the road. You get the map without having to make every wrong turn yourself. And the good news is, you're hearing it early enough to actually do something with it. You don't have to wait until you're 85 with a long list of I wish I hads. You get to borrow the wisdom now and skip most of the regret. That's the cheat code. And honestly, it's the whole reason I made this video. So, here's what I'd love from you. Down in the comments, tell me which one of these landed hardest. Be honest. Was it the comparison, the grudge? Was it your knees quietly filing their retirement paperwork? I really do want to know which one you're going to do something about. And if this made you think or feel something or reach out to someone you'd been meaning to call, go ahead and hit that like button. If you're not subscribed yet, come hang out. This is the channel where we build a life worth retiring into, not just a bank account worth bragging about.